The Rookie of the Year award celebrates sports' brightest rising stars, and in NASCAR the journey forward is grueling, adapting to the top echelon of stock car racing, as well as the new tracks and cars over a full 9-month schedule. Some rookies in NASCAR burst onto the scene, delivering unforgettable careers that will surely lock them into the Hall of Fame one day, while others saw their career fizzle out, never becoming anything more than the award they won. So in this video I'll rank the last 20 NASCAR Rookie of the Year award winners, from worst to best, all the way from stars like Kyle Busch to drivers from other series across the globe. Before we go over the worst Rookie of the Year in the last 2 decades, something needs to be mentioned first. The first 3 drivers featured in this video all come from back-to-back-to-back years, due to the lethal levels of bushwhacking that was being done by Cup drivers in the early to mid-2000s. The effect of the Cup drivers' desire to run in the lower series was a completely dried up well of talent going into the Cup series for multiple years. Basically, if the late 90s and early 2000s was the golden age of Rookie of the Year winners, this era was the dark age of it. To start the ranking, we have the 2012 winner Stephen Light. Light came into NASCAR as a prospect for Robert Yates in the mid-2000s, making his Cup debut in a one-off start for the 90 car in 2006, while also running part-time in the Busch Series for the team, before moving up to full-time in the Busch Series for 2007. This served as his only full-time season in any of the top 3 NASCAR series for his entire career, and he would make the most of it, by capturing his lone NASCAR win during the 16th race of the season at Kentucky. Light rounded out his season 7th in the standings, but would be let go by Robert Yates Racing due to financial issues. He'd eventually find one more opportunity in top equipment, signing on to run part-time for Richard Childress Racing in the Busch Series for 2 seasons, but failing to post a top 5 finish in 14 starts, rounding out his tenure with the best finish of 6th before his release after 2009. He made his return to NASCAR in 2011 in a one-off start for Tommy Baldwin Racing in the Cup Series, driving the 36 at Richmond, and he surprisingly ran well, as he spent most of the night around the top 20 before eventually finishing the night out in 24th. And with that run, Light signed on to drive for Joe Folk in the 33 for 2012, starting his Rookie of the Year campaign in the 9th race of the season at Richmond. And if you're wondering how a guy who missed out on most of the year won Rookie of the Year, it's because his competition was Timmy Hill, who only ran in 5 races, and Josh Wise, who started and parked in all but 1 race, giving Light the Rookie of the Year by only starting in 15 races with a best finish of 26 and DNFing in 10 of those races, with his main highlight being him hitting a groundhog during a Pocono practice session, which slots him last in these rankings. But not by much, because the next driver was just as bad. Coming in 19th is the 2010 winner Kevin Conway. Conway entered NASCAR driving for multiple backmarker teams, before finally getting his chance in 2007 when he signed on to drive the 18 for Gibbs Racing, part-time in the Busch Series, teaming up with elite JGR Cup Series drivers like Denny Hamlin and Tony Stewart. Unfortunately for Conway, he wouldn't seize the opportunity in top-tier equipment, and he'd be outshined by his teammates, as he'd fail to collect a top 10 finish in all of his starts, while only managing to muster up a best finish of 20th. To nobody's shock, he'd be axed from the team following his year, and he'd sit out the entire 2008 season, before returning with a new sponsor and extends to drive in a flurry of nationwide rides throughout 2009. But in 2010, he'd take the sponsorship money all the way to Cup to drive for Front Row Motorsports full-time with 0 top 10s and his entire NASCAR career prior to this. NASCAR wouldn't let him drive in the Daytona 500 due to his lack of super speedway experience, and once the team finally did take it to the speedway, there wouldn't be anything positive to say about his season, with Conway collecting only 1 top 25 before his release from his ride following the 22nd race of the season at Watkins Glen. Front Row Motorsports later sued Kevin Conway and his sponsor Extends over an alleged non-payment of part of the $5.4 million sponsorship. Yet Conway would come back 2 weeks later with a new team, this time driving for Robbie Gordon Motorsports in the number 7. However, just like the previous team, Robbie Gordon would also end up getting in a sponsorship dispute with Conway and Extends, and after this, teams finally stopped giving Kevin Conway rides, as he'd missed 5 of the last 6 races on the season. He'd go on to win Rookie of the Year at season's end, due to his only competitor Terry Cook running only 3 races, giving Conway the award by default.
By default, my favorite way to win!
Next up is the missing year of the three-peat, as in between 2010 and 2012, since the last year of the Dark Ages in 2011. Lally, better known for his IMSA success, came into NASCAR in 2007 from the road course racing scene, appearing in multiple truck races, as well as 2 Busch Series races, DNFing at Montreal with a transmission issue, and finishing 10th at Watkins Glen. In 2008, he'd run 9 races in trucks with little success, before moving up to the Cup Series for a one-off start in the TRG number 71 at Watkins Glen, qualifying an impressive 15th and finishing in 27th. He'd returned back to them for 2010 in a part-time role for 7 races, seeing him collect a best finish of 18th at Watkins Glen while DNFing in 3 of his other starts. Just prior to the 2011 Daytona 500, the team would announce Andy Lally as their driver for the entire season, with his only other fellow rookies being Brian Keselowski and TJ Bell, neither of whom would come close to running enough starts to count for eligibility. Therefore, Andy Lally essentially wrapped up this award in March. So how would the 2011 Rookie of the Year perform? Well, the team would DNQ from 6 races throughout the season, and when they were on track, it was usually nothing to keep your eye on, as they consistently ran from 25th to 40th each week, wrapping up the year with a best finish of 19th, while finishing 33rd in the final standings, which leads us into some more forgotten Rookie of the Year winners. Next up is 2015 winner Brett Moffitt. Moffitt spent 5 years in ARCA in the early 2010s, before moving up to NASCAR in 2012 on a one-off for Michael Waltrip Racing, where at his home track at Iowa Speedway, he would impress with a 10th place qualifying effort and a 9th place finish. He only ran 2 NASCAR races in 2013, both being in trucks for different teams, before moving up to the Cup Series for 7 races in 2014, driving the 66, where he'd collect a best finish of 22nd, along with 6 finishes of 30th or worse. But in 2015, Moffitt got a career-changing opportunity to drive the number 55 at Atlanta, again for Michael Waltrip Racing, due to the team's regular driver Brian Vickers having off-season surgery to repair a patch placed over a hole in his heart. Moffitt would impress all day at one of the toughest tracks in NASCAR, spending portions of the race in the top 10 and ending his day in 8th place. After this, he'd be signed by Front Row Motorsports to drive the 34 for David Reagan, who was subbing for Kyle Busch at the time, before getting the call back to the 55 after just 2 races on the 34, due to Vickers suffering blood clots again in his career. He'd run in the 55 for the next 5 races, only finishing a best of 17th, before again signing back with the 34 team to finish the season out, while expected driver David Reagan went to drive the 55 for the year. After his game of musical chairs with Cup rides, his season would go as expected for a rookie driving in underfunded equipment, as he'd failed to collect a top 20 for the team and eventually go on to finish 34th in the overall standings, with an average finish of 30.5, leading into the first Rookie of the Year in this ranking to come close to winning a race in his rookie year. In 16th comes Regan Smith, who came into NASCAR in the mid-2000s and immediately bounced from team to team in the lower series, hoping to get an opportunity. He eventually got his first full-time ride in 2006, driving the McDonald's 35 for Renzi Motorsports, collecting just 1 top 10 on the year. But during this season, Smith would test for the Cup team Ginn Racing, leading to him signing on with the team for 2007 to drive part-time in the Busch Series, as well as part-time in the Cup Series. He put together 3 top 5s in 17 races before the program was shut down on the Busch Series, but in the Cup Series he'd struggle. Driving the 01 for Ginn Racing in DEI, Smith only managed a best finish of 24th in 7 races, but was able to finish every race, which is always important for young drivers. For 2008, Smith got moved to full-time outside of the road courses in the 01 car for the newly merged Ginn and DEI, and it would be a struggle for him all year, as he'd failed to be above 30th in the standings all season, while never finishing inside the top 10, ending the year with an average finish north of 28. And to make matters worse, he'd be completely robbed from his first career win, as coming to the finish on the fall Talladega race he'd be forced below the yellow by Tony Stewart in the Tri-Oval, eventually passing Stewart for the win, but having it stripped due to him passing below the yellow, which is deemed illegal in NASCAR. This ruling immediately blew up in NASCAR's face 6 months later, as Brad Keselowski refused to lose his first career win in the same way, and caused a vicious crash in the process. However, Smith eventually got redemption for Talladega 3 years later, and found himself in victory lane in the Cup Series for the only time in his career.
He's all right. He's okay. He got off there great.
But Edwards didn't jump inside.
They're all wrecking behind him, but it's okay. Can he hold him off? One more corner.
Here we come to the flag.
He's
Regan
got
Smith
him. I think
looking
he's got
for
him.
his first Sprint Cup win. Edwards 2 car
Got
lengths
him.
back. Smith gets the flag, and this time he'll get to keep it.
How about that?
15th belongs to Daniel Hemrick, the 2019 award winner. Hemrick competed in the Truck Series for NTS Motorsports for multiple years, before securing a ride with the top team in Brad Keselowski Racing in the 19 truck for 2016. He'd go winless driving the truck, but still managed to point his way into the playoffs, while being one of the most consistent trucks in the field, ending his year with 17 top 10s in 23 races, while finishing 6th in the overall standings. This consistency would lead to him getting a full-time ride in the Richard Childress Racing number 21 in the Xfinity Series for the 2017 and 2018 seasons, where he'd collect 23 top 5s in 66 races, just over 1 in every 3 races, as well as 39 top 10s, and only DNFing 4 times, while also making 2 starts for RCR in the number 8 in the Cup Series for 2018. Although he failed to win a NASCAR race up to that point in his career, it still wouldn't stop Richard Childress Racing from hiring him full-time to run in the Cup Series for 2019, alongside Austin Dillon, hoping that his consistent driving style would carry to Cup. It wouldn't carry over, and his rookie campaign would end up being just underwhelming to sum it up, basically running in 24th for 9 months, then calling it a season. Hemrick would garner 1 top 5, coming at the Spring Talladega race, along with just 1 other top 10 on the year coming at Pocono, with his lone highlight being a pole at Kansas, later ending the year with 0 wins, 1 pole, 2 top 10s, 22 laps led, and an average finish of 22.5, while finishing 25th in the standings. But he'd beat Ryan Preece out for Rookie of the Year honors, which is all that really matters at the end of the day. Next up in 14th place is William Byron's 2018 Rookie of the Year winning season. Byron came into NASCAR with a unique path compared to other drivers at the time, starting his career by sim racing before soon racing in real life, and later being signed to a development deal by Hendrick Motorsports. His first venture into NASCAR came when he ran full-time for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the 2016 truck season, where he would take no time at all to adjust to the series, going out and winning 7 of the 23 races on the schedule and finishing 5th in the points, only losing out on the championship due to a blown motor. This season later led to his call-up to the Xfinity Series to drive the 9 for Junior Motorsports, and again Byron would immediately succeed in a new environment, winning 3 times in the regular season, including back-to-back wins at Iowa and Daytona for his first 2 wins, later earning 1 more win at Phoenix in the second-to-last race to lock himself in the championship race, where he'd go out and beat veteran teammate Elliott Sadler in a battle late in the event for the championship. After his impressive season, he'd be moved up full-time to the renumbered 5 to now 24 for Hendrick Motorsports, where his ability to quickly adapt to a new series would be gone in place for an ability to tear up equipment, as Byron DNF'd in 9 races in 2018, or about 25% of the races on the schedule, as he tried to adjust to the Cup Series, failing to collect a top 5 in a Hendrick car, while only having 4 top 10s, with the best finish of 6 after overtime in Pocono, as he struggled throughout most of the season, along with most of the Chevys and Hendrick during this era. But not all hope was lost for the season though, as Byron was still awarded Rookie of the Year, beating out Bubba Wallace for the award. His final stats on the year were 0 wins, 0 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 61 laps led, and an average finish of 22.1, with a 23rd place points finish. Lucky number 13 belongs to none other than 2021 winner Chase Briscoe. Briscoe's break in NASCAR occurred in 2017 when he was signed on to drive the 29 in Brad Keselowski Racing's final year of operation, where he'd capture 1 win at the finale at Homestead. He stayed in the Ford pipeline for 2018, landing him a spot on the infamous 2018 Roush number 60 team, as well as part-time in the 98 for Stewart-Haas in the Xfinity Series, later ending up winning the first Roval race for his first career Xfinity win. Stewart-Haas would bring him on full-time in 2019 to drive the 98, where he'd post an impressively consistent campaign, winning 1 time coming at Iowa, while also collecting 26 top 10s and 13 top 5s, later finishing 5th in the standings and returning for 2020. He'd break out when he came back for 2020, winning 9 of the 33 races on the schedule, while also advancing to the Final 4 in Phoenix but finishing last of the drivers. This impressive season prompted Stewart-Haas to do the obvious and select Briscoe to drive the 14 for the retiring Clint Bowyer. Yet upon his promotion, he'd struggle immediately along with the entire organization as a whole, enduring a rookie season of limited practice thanks to COVID, and it showed, as it would take Briscoe until the 14th race of the season in a rain-shortened COTA mess to collect his first top 10, with the rest of his season's top 10 of 2 both coming at road courses also. But Briscoe was close to changing the entire narrative of his season at the first Indy Roval race for the Cup Series, a race he won prior last year in the Xfinity Series. However, after competing for the win, Briscoe would be forced off the track on a late restart, later resulting in a penalty and a payback which ended up being the highlight of his rookie year. His final rookie stats were 0 wins, 0 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 18 laps led, a 19.6 average finish, and a 23rd place points finish. Coming in at number 12 on this list is the 2013 winner Ricky Stenhouse. Stenhouse first appeared in NASCAR driving for Roush in the Nationwide Series as a development driver in 2009 in a part-time role for when Cup drivers were too far away to race. Such a wild thing to say. 2010 would start out bad for the now full-time Stenhouse, as after crashing out of 4 of the first 10 races of the season, Stenhouse was replaced by Brian Eichler for 3 races, before being brought back on, and after that, he'd only DNF in 2 races for the rest of the year. His performance would improve significantly in 2011 after NASCAR made a rule to where you could only compete for 1 title in the top 3 series. And with this change, it now saw Stenhouse be a top 5 threat week in and week out as the flagship driver on Roush's Nationwide program, even sweeping the Iowa races on the season. He'd win back-to-back titles in 2011 and 2012 with Roush in the 6 car, and with Matt Kenseth's departure from the team for JGR following 2012, it left a perfect opportunity for Stenhouse to move up to Cup, replacing Kenseth in the iconic Roush number 17. However, it was a struggle for him throughout the year, as he'd appear as a 15th to 25th place car for most of the season, with his saving grace being the fact that he'd finish every race. Stenhouse's best race though was at the Spring Kansas event, where had cautions fallen right for him, he easily could have won the race, after appearing to have the fastest car late in the race. He eventually went on to finish his rookie season with 1 top 5 coming at Talladega, along with 3 top 10s, 1 pole at Atlanta, as well as 35 lap sled, an 18.9 average finish, and a 19th place points finish. This ranking could be lower on the list, as it honestly depends on how much you value consistency over counting stats, but I believe 12th is the best fit. Just missing out on the top 10 is this year's winner of the award, Carson Hocevar, who got his first full-time ride in NASCAR in the 2021 season, driving the 42 for Nice Motorsports in the Truck Series. During his time he'd impressed on the team as a flagship driver, but it would take until year 3 for him to win his first NASCAR race, coming after a controversial move at Texas to wreck the leader.
Neither one letting up. If they touch, Nick Sanchez gets sideways, he wrecks! The 38 Zane Smith goes around!
The clip pretty much sums up his Cup career so far, as soon after he'd begun making starts in the Cup Series, subbing for Corey LaJoie in Gateway while he subbed for Chase Elliott, and replacing Noah Gragson in the 42 for spot starts late in the year. After impressing in the Cup Series, Spire would sign Hocevar to skip the Xfinity Series, and drive for them full-time in 2024 in the 77 and Cup. Hocevar's rookie season started off as bad as you could hope, crashing out on lap 5 of the Daytona 500, later collecting his first top 10 of the season in the 9th race at Texas. He'd stay under the radar for the most part in the first half, earning another top 10 in the same place where he made his debut at in Gateway, until Nashville when he spun out Harrison Burton during a caution lap, costing him $50,000 and 25 driver points. Over the final 15 races, he and Spire as a whole would see an uptick in their performance, leading to an average finish of 16.6 compared to his first 21 races, where he had an average finish of 19.7, being highlighted with the front row start in the playoff cutoff race at Darlington, along with a 3rd place finish at Watkins Glen. He'd wrap up the award over teammate Zane Smith early in the year, finishing 2024 with 0 wins, 1 top 5, 6 top 10s, 16 laps led, and an average finish of 18.3, and ending the year 20th in the standings, leading us into our only F1 driver in this video. Starting off the top 10 on this list is 2007 Rookie of the Year, Juan Pablo Montoya. Montoya was the best NASCAR driver out of the open wheel invasion, coming over after winning an Indy 500 and a championship in IndyCar, as well as multiple races in F1, before transitioning over to stock cars driving for Chip Ganassi. He'd start off his NASCAR career by running in the final 4 races of the 2006 Busch Series season, with a best finish of 11th at Memphis, while also making his Cup debut in the same year at Homestead, yet ending his night in a fiery crash. For 2007, after just 5 NASCAR starts, Montoya was moved to full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series, driving the number 42 for Chip Ganassi, and for how little experience he had, he'd hold his own, immediately finishing top 5 at Atlanta in the 4th race of the year, while also being around the top 20 in points for the entirety of the season. But the peak of his year would come during his first Cup Series road course race, when he'd capture his first career win at Sonoma, later backing it up 4 weeks later with a runner-up in his first career Brickyard 400. Montoya ended his Rookie of the Year campaign with 1 win, 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s, 0 poles, 26 laps led, and an average finish of 22.7, while finishing 20th in the standings, taking the award over David Reagan, who finished a few spots behind him in points. leading into the next driver on this ranking, being the youngest driver to win the award. 2009 winner Joey Logano came into NASCAR with a nickname titled the greatest thing since sliced bread, earning a part-time Joe Gibbs racing ride in the Nationwide Series at just the age of 18, as well as some Cup Series starts in the same year. He immediately won in just his third start in the Nationwide Series at Kentucky, and rounded out his year with 14 top 10s and 19 starts. Now, am I a NASCAR team owner? I am not. But if I was, would I have put a 19-year-old Joey Logano in my Cup car full-time instead of a full-time Nationwide season? No. The same cannot be said for Joe Gibbs, who put Logano in the 20 full-time in 2009 to replace two-time champion Tony Stewart. Logano started off the year with 5 finishes of 30th or worse in the first 8 races, before collecting his first top 10 at Talladega, later backing it up with a set of back-to-back 9th place runs a few weeks later, yet never managing to stay consistent, as the next 10 races after saw him finish with just 1 top 10. But that 1 top 10 would save his entire rookie season, as Joey Logano would collect his first Cup Series win via a timely rain shower in New Hampshire. Following his win, Logano earned 3 top 10s for the rest of the year, one of which being a 3rd place run in the fall Talladega race, while also managing to barrel roll down turn 3 at Dover. Logano would go on to end his season with 1 win, 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s, 0 poles, 36 laps led, and an average finish of 20th, while finishing 20th in the standings, allowing him to win Rookie of the Year with ease over his main competitor Max Papis. However, the next winner won the award in the weirdest NASCAR season. 2020 winner Cole Custer, the son of Haas Factory Team, aka Stewart Haas Racing President Joe Custer, entered NASCAR in 2014 on a part-time role, driving in the Truck Series for Haas at 16, where he'd win once at New Hampshire, becoming the youngest winner in the top 3 NASCAR series, and by 2016 he went full-time in the Truck Series with Junior Motorsports, with his main highlight being tackling John Hunter Nemechek after he robbed him of a win in Canada. With Stewart Haas swapping to Ford in 2017, it took Custer out of the Chevy pipeline and into a Ford in the Xfinity Series for Stewart Haas, where he'd spend the next 3 years, winning 1 race in both 2017 and 18, before breaking out in 2019, and winning 7 races but losing the title to Tyler Reddick, in a championship battle between him, Reddick, and Christopher Bell, which carried up to the Cup Series for 2020 as the Rookie of the Year battle as well. Custer took over the 41 at Stewart Haas Racing, earning his first top 10 in the final race before the sport was shut down for 2 months after Phoenix. Unfortunately for Custer, when the sport came back after the COVID shutdown, there were strict protocols and changes to the scheduling. This included no practice and qualifying, as well as multiple midweek races, meaning he and the other rookies would have to learn the tracks and the race alone, while also racing multiple times a week. He'd struggle with the next 10 races back, until he got his first career top 5 coming in the Brickyard 400, going out and backing it up the next week with his first career win, after an insane move for it.
Custer to the outside, more wide. White flag waves, 1 to go, sponsored by Credit One Bank. Next flag ends it.
They're banging off one another.
Custer to the lead.
Oh, heavy tire rub.
Off the final turn, rookie Cole Custer wins Kentucky.
The win locked him into the playoffs, and once Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell missed the playoffs following Daytona, it sealed the award for Custer. Even though without the playoffs, he'd have finished last of the 3, 100 points behind Reddick in the final standings, but that's the way she goes. Custer ended the season with 1 win, 2 top 5s, 7 top 10s, 5 laps led, and an average finish of 19.2, wrapping up the year 16th and last in the playoff standings, slotting him 8th in the rankings. In 7th, much like Custer though, is a driver with family on the ownership side of NASCAR. 2023 winner Ty Gibbs burst into NASCAR as the grandson of legendary team owner Joe Gibbs by winning his first career race in his first start with no practice or qualifying in the 2021 Xfinity Series race at the Daytona Road Course, backing it up with 3 more wins over his part-time tenure that year. He'd moved to full-time in 2022, capturing 7 wins and destroying his reputation in the process, by fighting a junior motorsports driver and dumping his teammate who was in a must-win on the white flag of a race to win the race for himself, later following it up by winning the championship, with the entire sport watching over him the next week to wrap up his season. The next step in his career was to replace Kyle Busch at Joe Gibbs Racing, swapping the iconic 18 for the Monster Energy 54. And during his rookie year, it would be a complete 180 from his Xfinity Series days, as he really didn't do much in his first season. He'd collect 4 top 10s in a row from Atlanta to Bristol Dirt, leading into a very consistent season where he'd get his feet wet in the Cup Series. with this highlight race being the Bristol Night Race, where he led 102 laps in the middle portions of the event, going on to end the night in 5th place. He'd complete his rookie season with 4 top 5s, 10 top 10s, while posting an average finish of 18.4 and finishing 18th in the standings, earning the award after Noah Gragson was let go from his ride in the middle of the season, bringing us to the last driver not in the top 5. The 2022 Rookie of the Year winner Austin Cindric is the third Brad Keselowski Racing graduate to be featured on this list, beginning his NASCAR career driving for him in the Truck Series part-time before moving to full-time in 2017. His lone truck win occurred during this season, where on the final lap at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, he turned Casgrella for the win, the first chance he got to pass him. The next year he was bumped up to the Xfinity Series full-time in the 22 for Roger Penske, which partially could be because he is the son of Team Penske president Tim Cindric. But either way, he'd run full-time in the Xfinity Series across the next 4 years, collecting 0 wins in 2018, 2 in 2019, 6 along with a championship in 2020, and 7 in 2021, in a year where he should have won the championship, but Daniel Hemrick had other plans.
Through 1 and 2. They stay side by side. Now the 18 ducks in behind. One more chance. The 22 in front. The 18 closing the gap. And a 4. They're side by side. Hemrick's gonna win it at the line.
Following Brad Keselowski's departure to Roush, Penske hired Cindric to pilot the 2 car for 2022 after multiple races the year prior in the 33, and he immediately did what every rookie dreams of doing.
Briscoe's out. He can't get to the
Austin Cindric, whose grandfather won the Indy 500 as a car owner. Cindric is going to bring them to the line way up high to block Ryan Blaney, and at the line, Cindric beats Bubba Wallace by half a car length, and they crash going into turn 1.
After his Daytona 500 win, he'd collect his first career pole the next week at Auto Club, but after that he'd get snapped back into reality, finishing outside the top 15 in 7 of the next 10 races, until a streak of 6 finishes of 11th or better in the next 7 races, including 4 top 10s in a row. He'd earn a 2nd and a 3rd at the Indy Roval and Daytona cutoff race before the playoffs began, making it through the first round with finishes of 16th, 12th, and 20th, yet being eliminated in the following round after finishing 15th, 9th, and 21st, bringing his final season stats to 1 win, 5 top 5s, 9 top 10s, 1 pole, 86 laps led, and an average finish of 16.3, with a points finish of 12, making him the highest finishing in points on this ranking so far. The first ranking in the top 5 belongs to 2017 winner Erik Jones, who was a top NASCAR prospect throughout the 2010s, driving part-time for Kyle Busch Motorsports in 2013 and 2014, collecting 4 wins in the process before moving to full-time for 2015. Jones won 3 races in his only full-time Truck Series season, and bested Matt Crafton for the championship, who had won the previous 2 in a row, eventually moving up to the Xfinity Series for JGR full-time in 2016. He had previously ran part-time in the series for 2014 and 2015, winning 2 times across 26 races for JGR, and 2016 would be no different for him, as he'd collect 4 wins and advance all the way to the championship 4 at Homestead, but lost out on a chance to fight for the championship after Colwitt stayed on old tires and held him up on a late race restart. Midway through 2016, Joe Gibbs Racing satellite team Furniture Racing announced they would expand to a 2-car operation in 2017 and field a 2nd car for Erik Jones, and his rookie season would end up being a solid one much like Ty Gibbs. He'd finished in the top 3 multiple times throughout the season, with his best race of the year coming in the Bristol Night Race, where he'd qualify in first and dominate, leading a race-high 260 laps, but lose in a battle with Kyle Busch, eventually finishing a career-best 2nd. On the flip side, Jones would struggle to complete laps throughout his rookie year, as he'd endure 8 DNFs, all being crash-related across the season, being one of the reasons why he missed the playoffs. Once the season was concluded, Jones had collected 5 top 5s, 14 top 10s, 1 pole, 310 laps led, and an average finish of 17.1, ending the year 19th in the standings, or 15th if you use non-playoff standings. 4th place takes us back 20 years to the 2005 Rookie of the Year winner Kyle Busch, who followed in his older brother Kurt's footsteps of becoming a NASCAR driver at a young age, joining the Truck Series at 16 years old for Roush part-time in the 99, before a new minimum age rule sidelined him for the next 2 years. Eventually he earned a ride at Hendrick Motorsports in the Busch Series full-time in 2004, driving the 5 car at 19 years old, winning 5 times in 34 races and finishing second to Martin Truex Jr. in the standings. Following this, Hendrick made the choice to move the young driver to Cup full-time to replace Terry Labonte in the 5 after running 6 races the previous year in the 84. It only took Busch until his second race of the season to capture his first pole, coming at Auto Club, later finishing an impressive second in the next race at Las Vegas in his hometown, and repeating that same run at Dover a few months later for his third top 5 of the year. Over the next 23 races, the season would get as inconsistent as one could imagine, seeing Busch have 3 finishes that weren't either inside the top 10 or outside the top 30. Yet in this stretch, however, Busch collected his first win after a dominant run at Auto Club, which saw him lead 90 of the 200 laps en route to victory.
Tomorrow, the headlines will say Busch won at California.
Here it is.
But it'll be Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch wins at California.
Yeah, get it.
He'd back this up with another win in the second to last race of the year at Phoenix, but yet he still ended the year with 8 DNFs. The ranking on this could go higher or lower, as it's rare a rookie wins multiple times in a season, and he did lead an impressive 362 laps compared to someone like Austin Cindric's 86. But his average finish would be 5 spots higher at 21 compared to Cindric, and his points finish was 8 spots worse also at 20. Yet at the same time, Busch had 4 more top 5s and 4 more top 10s, while also competing in a much more competitive era of NASCAR. His final stats were 2 wins, 9 top 5s, 13 top 10s, 362 laps led, and a 21st place average finish, while finishing 20th in the points. On the podium in third is 2014 winner Kyle Larson, who earned a full-time Nationwide Series ride with Turner Scott Motorsports in 2013 to start off his NASCAR career after running just 4 Truck Series starts the year prior. Larson held his own in the Nationwide Series after a violent catch fence crash in his debut at Daytona, but he failed to win along the way, earning 9 top 5s and 14 top 10s while DNFing 7 times, along with making 4 Cup Series starts towards the end of the year. After his Nationwide Series campaign, Chip Ganassi, like most young drivers he had, put them straight into the Cup Series with little experience, but Larson would bring life to the struggling team, who had 1 win in the past 3 seasons. Starting after a crash in the Daytona 500, Larson immediately put his talent on display and competed for a win a few weeks later at Auto Club against none other than Kyle Busch on the final lap.
Larson's got to run down the back.
Can he win 2 days in a row?
The rookie.
Can he battle Kyle Busch 2 days in a row?
He battled him yesterday and beat him.
Here he comes. Diving to the inside. Kyle took the block. He blocked him.
It's the Kyle and Kyle show on turn 4.
How many times we seen this? This is like 4 or 5 times these 2 guys have battled each other for the victory.
Busch the veteran, Larson the rookie. Kyle Busch wins California.
He'd earn 2 more top 10s over the next 3 races, including a 5th at Texas, and he'd keep up his consistent season by having just 1 finish outside of the top 20 in the races after the Daytona 500 until the 15th race of the year at Michigan, even seeing him be as high as 7th in the standings. But 3 finishes of 25th or worse, including 3 crashes, derailed his season and dropped him from 7th all the way to 17th in the standings. Yet Larson picked it back up following this, with finishes of 3rd, 7th, 11th, and 4th, but a blown tire at Michigan ended his hopes of making the playoffs. And if he had made it, he would have made it all the way to the round of 8, with finishes of 3rd at Chicago to start the playoffs, and backing it up with finishes of 2nd, 6th, 2nd, and 6th again, before 1 final top 10 to end his year at Texas. He ended the season 17th in the standings, first of the non-playoff cars, and had the playoffs not been around, he would have been 8th at season's end. His final stats were 0 wins, 8 top 5s, 17 top 10s, 1 pole, 53 laps led, and a 14th place average finish, while finishing 17th in the overall standings, leading us to a current teammate of his for 2nd place in the rankings. 2016 winner Chase Elliott came into NASCAR as a Hendrick Motorsports development driver, as well as Bill Elliott's son in 2013, driving for Turner Scott Motorsports part-time, while even winning his first career race at Canadian Tire in the process, albeit in controversial fashion. After his stint in trucks, he'd move up to the Nationwide Series full-time for Junior Motorsports in the 9 for 2014, winning back-to-back races at Texas and Darlington, besting cup-level talent in each race, while also going on to win the championship with 1 race to spare at season's end. He returned to the series full-time for 2015, finishing 2nd in the standings with 1 win to Chris Buescher, while also making 6 Cup Series starts at select tracks, driving the 25 for Hendrick Motorsports, seeing a best finish of 16th at Richmond. Following Jeff Gordon's retirement in 2015, it was Chase Elliott who'd be selected to carry on the 24's legacy in 2016, and he immediately won his first career Cup Series pole in Daytona 500 qualifying, yet wrecked coming off a turn 4 during the race to end his chances. Elliott came out of the gates hot after his 500 crash, however, earning 11 finishes of 8th or better in the next 14 races, including 6 top 5s, capping his impressive runoff by nearly winning his first race in back-to-back races, first at Pocono after leading the most laps, but losing his chance to win after a poorly timed pass on teammate Dale Jr. in the tunnel turn, going on to finish in 4th place.
Able to get inside the 24 right there. Oh, look at this. Whoa!
No!
Look at this move. Watch out for Kurt Busch. Yeah, he's going to come to the inside. He took advantage of that.
Yeah, you're going to pay for that.
He's going to get by Junior here as well.
And at Michigan, he lost by missing a shift on the restart and finishing runner-up. Elliott came back to reality after this, finishing outside of the top 20 in 4 races in a row and 5 of the next 6, before another runner-up at Michigan, this time to Kyle Larson, after losing a 3-second lead due to a caution flag with under 20 laps to go, allowing Larson to pass him on the ensuing restart. Elliott easily pointed his way into the playoffs, and at Chicago during the first race, he'd again be robbed of his first win, when after leading 75 laps, his 1-second lead would be erased by a 5 to go yellow, later losing the race off pit road to eventual race winner Martin Truex Jr. He'd go on to point his way to the round of 12, before being involved in a restart crash with the dominant car at Charlotte, while a 31st place run at Kansas would derail his season and eliminate him after the round of 12. Elliott wrapped up the season with the first top 10 points finish of anyone on this ranking so far, as well as 10 top 5s, 17 top 10s, 2 poles, 358 laps led, and an average finish of 14.6, with a 10th place points finish. Last but not least, and the best Rookie of the Year award winner over the past 20 years, belongs to the 2006 winner. Denny Hamlin came into NASCAR on a part-time basis in the Truck Series for 5 starts in 2004, until his call-up to full-time in the Busch Series for 2005, driving the 20 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Hamlin ran a solid season considering how bad the leaching was at the time, earning 1 top 5 and 11 top 10s, while also getting the call-up to the Cup Series at the end of the year, to replace a struggling Jason Leffler for 7 races. He'd managed to earn 3 top 10s on 1 pole in his short stint in the Cup Series, besting anything that Leffler had done in the full season, and with that, Joe Gibbs selected Hamlin to drive the FedEx 11 full-time for 2006. After 9 races in 2006, he sat 19th in the standings, with just 2 top 10s, until he hit his stride following the first quarter of the season, going on to finish inside the top 20 in every race for the next 20 races. To start this, Hamlin earned a new career best with a runner-up at his home track in Richmond, followed up by a 10th, a 9th, and an 11th, before his first career NASCAR win at Pocono.
Denny Hamlin rolls off turn 3 and he joins Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte, and Tony Stewart as winners for Joe Gibbs Racing. Hamlin, the rookie, starts on the pole, falls to 40th, then wins the Pocono 500.
Hamlin failed to finish inside the top 10 over the next 4 races after his win, sitting 12th in the standings just 50 points behind making the chase in his first season. But after this, he collected a 6th in New Hampshire, and followed it up with his 2nd win of his rookie season, again coming at Pocono.
Coming out of turn 3 for his 2nd career win. He sweeps at Pocono. Denny Hamlin, the race winner of the Pennsylvania 500.
5 top 10s over the next 6 races put him into the chase with ease, and once the chase began, his performance stayed consistent, finishing 4th in New Hampshire to start, and 9th at Dover to back it up, before enduring his worst stretch of the season, which saw him finish 18th, 21st, and 28th over the next 3 weeks, setting him back, until he picked it right back up with the runner-up at Martinsville, an 8th at Atlanta, a 10th at Texas, and back-to-back 3rds at Phoenix and Homestead to end his year, putting him all the way up to 3rd in the standings as a rookie, becoming the highest points finishing rookie in NASCAR's modern era. Hamlin's final rookie stats were 2 wins, 8 top 5s, 20 top 10s, 3 poles, 418 laps led, and an average finish of 12.5, along with a 3rd place points finish, easily putting him first in these rankings. And that's it for ranking Rookie of the Year winners over the last 20 years. If you want to know who's the best in each stat, it goes as follows, and I'll show you the final rankings on the side. Most wins in the season was a tie between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch at 2, and the most top 5s was Chase Elliott with 10. The most top 10s was Denny Hamlin with 20, and along with this he won the most poles, most laps led, and the best average finish. So what is there to learn from this video? You should subscribe. And don't expect rookies to come into the series and immediately be competitive, because over the last 20 years, It seems only a handful of times as a rookie came into the series and held their own over an entire season.